Hi, my name's Sean Howard, and welcome back to this lesson gem. We're going to be digging into lesson 73, understanding the context of the scriptures. And this is a lesson that's focused on building scriptural literacy and scriptural skills to help our students learn and love to study the scriptures in their own lives. Now, let me set the stage real quick by sharing just a quick thought from a paper that John Hilton III wrote about helping students study the scriptures. He asked this question: what are the most important things religious educators can do to have a long-range effect on their students? I love the statement that he shared from Elder, now President Dallin H. Oaks, to Seminary and Institute teachers some years ago. He said, "There are few things that a teacher can do that would have a more powerful, long-range effect upon their students' lives than teaching them the importance of studying the scriptures, giving them that experience, and letting them taste the fruit of daily scripture study. In my judgment, that would go beyond any subject that might be taught from the scriptures except the fundamentals and the first few articles of faith. Beyond that, I think the most important thing we can do as teachers of seminary and institute students would be to connect them with the scriptures and the results of daily scripture study." So again, I love the purpose of this lesson, that we can help our students understand how the context of scriptures can make scripture study more meaningful. Context can bring the scriptures to life when we understand them and make it so much easier literary to be able to read and understand scriptures, which young people often get lost in the difficulty of that. And so I want to share a quick idea on how you might be able to start your class to get them interested and pulled in. I really love the way the curriculum goes about, but let me share a few other tips on how you might bring the curriculum alive as you go throughout the lesson today. I really like this beginning of just using the picture to show the difference in perspective. But if we want to bring that alive a little bit more, then I would probably take my students to this website right here. It's called perceptualart.com. It's the work of Michael Murphy. He's done some really great things that help us see that if we just change our perspective and look at things a little differently, they'll look totally different. For example, this is one that I might recommend using. It starts out as a star, and if you let it go through, see what it changes into as you look at it from a different perspective. It turns into a Pegasus. Pretty cool, right? That's what context is like. If we just change our perspective a little bit, it can bring things out of the scriptures that we couldn't see before that could bless our lives even more and help them to be applicable and understandable to our lives. Now, another one that I might recommend is this next one right here. It's called Come Together, where it goes, and then all of a sudden you see this hand come together there. One more, if you scroll up, that I might use is this one called Air, where it shows the logo, but if you move around it and come all the way around to the other side, it's going to turn into a Nike shoe. So after you show those and ask a few questions to just get them thinking about how the change of perspective totally changes what you see, then you want to dive into the context. And we can miss important details if we don't know the context, and define context for them. Ask them what it is and make sure they understand what context is when we're talking about scriptures really well. Then what I might do right here in this spot, instead of going forward into this quote yet, I might go to the supplemental ideas in the back, and you got all of these ideas of just showing context. And you can say, what's the difference between imagining a young man praying and now imagining that same young man is Daniel and he's in the lion's den? How does that change the context of how you see what's going on in that moment? And there's all of these great quick little visuals that you can just help them see how the context totally changes how you see a situation. So I might just go through those before I jump back and I start digging into context and getting into the skills teaching portion, where we're going to define context, right? And then we're going to model what it's like to find context. And then we're going to let our students practice and actually have fun looking at context and getting more out of scriptures because of the context. So love this scripture by Elder Bednar. I would use it to ground us as we go forward. But and then here's our model. We're going to get to Doctrine and Covenants 121. You could use another scripture, but I would highly recommend using this scripture. And simply all you want to do is to invite them to go to the verses before they've looked at the section heading, right, that we can get more context from, and just ask, what did you see there? And then go to the section heading and see what else they can pull out. What are some of these tools, like in the next slide, that we can use? As I take them to section 121, again, I would go look at the verses around it, like it says, and look there. But I would also invite them to go to Revelations in Context in their Gospel Library app, and they're going to see this. They're going to come to Revelations in Context. If you teach them to go all the way down to the bottom, there's a index by section number. Then you get this index that shows each section number and the name of the context given that section. So if you go all the way down to section 121, I would take some time and take my students here and just open it up a little bit and ask them to go look. There's a lot of information here, as you see on the right. But what's beautiful is, as you read this introductory part of the reason why this revelation came was to help this gentleman by the last name of Baldwin, who was really struggling physically and emotionally in the dungeon of the Liberty Jail, because he had 10 kids at home. And he had a family and he was really struggling being away. So part of this revelation was just to help him personally, but also help all the other saints and to help us today. Sometimes that context be helpful. Then they can go and they could read a little bit more of what it really was like and the situation and why they were in jail and the injustices for Joseph and others. And that can change how we look at those words and how we can relate to them in our lives as well as we see that context. I would let your students loose and have them have fun as you practice and model looking for context in this extra. Then be sure to protect some time as you go to the scriptures. But one thing that I might recommend too, before you hop into letting them practice and get in, this little video and quote by Elder Anderson is just fabulous. It's an experience really quick showing how President Nelson, a picture was taken of him unbeknownst that was put into circulation that totally painted it in a wrong picture and didn't look right. And it might be a good time to just help our students understand that when they're learning about the gospel and they see things on Instagram, especially in social media, there's so many times that people are going to take things in the church and just twist it a little bit, take it out of context, and totally make it look different than what it really is. And so to beware that there's a lot of that happening in their lives too, as they're trying to understand truth and look at truth, they need to beware of the tactics of Satan and the context that he's going to try to twist as they learn truth as well. Once you get that, then you really want to protect some time and some good time for them to have fun and just make it fun for them to go search and find context. And so mainly in this lesson, it's focusing on going to scriptures around those verses and going to the chapter or section heading. But I really would highly recommend for Doctrine and Covenants, I think a lot of your students are going to really enjoy going into the Revelations in Context and invite them to do that. And then I love the idea in the curriculum that says put on piece of paper and put what you first learned. And then maybe they write a web and they put another bubble and they say in Revelations in Context, this is now what I'm learning now that I have this context behind me, and have them map out how context and learning more context helps them see more things on a paper for the verses that they practice with. And then they can share those with others in the class and just see how if we just take a little bit of time to learn context and become more literate in studying our scriptures, it will bring them to life for us.